To the world, my brother-in-law was a genius, a self-made titan living in a Boston mansion. To me, he was the man who smiled in my face while draining my bank account. He took everything, convincing my own wife that his lies were truth and my fears were weakness. He thought he'd left me with nothing, but he forgot that a desperate man is a dangerous one. He didn't know I'd launched my own secret financial crime investigation. What I found was darker than any fraud. It was a secret so toxic it could ruin him forever. To find out how I turned his biggest party into his public execution, you have to hear this story. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, go ahead and give it a like. It really helps me out. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks a bunch. The lie tasted like champagne. It was a crisp, expensive brut, the kind my brother-in-law Leo served at all his parties. I held the flute, letting the cool glass sweat against my fingers, and tried to look like I belonged. From the marble terrace of his mansion in Weston, Massachusetts, the lights of Boston were a distant, hazy glow. It was my party, technically, a celebration for the architectural award I had just won. But in Leo's world, everything belonged to him, including other people's victories. He tapped a fork against his glass, and a hush fell over the impeccably dressed crowd. "To Ethan," he boomed, his smile as wide and predatory as a shark's. When my little sister Chloe first brought him home, I'll admit, I had my doubts. A ripple of polite laughter. An artist. An architect. But I saw the spark. I told him, "Kid, you've got the vision, but vision needs a foundation. And I'm just glad I could provide a little of that foundation to help him reach his potential." He raised his glass to me. I smiled back, a hollow, aching grin. It was a masterclass in narcissism. He had just reframed my years of sleepless nights, my relentless grind, my soul-crushing work, into a footnote in his own magnanimous story. He was the benefactor, I was the project. The crowd applauded, and my wife, Chloe, squeezed my hand, her eyes shining with pride. She didn't see the insult. She never did. She only heard what she wanted to hear, that her brother, the center of her universe, approved of me. This was my life. A constant state of cognitive dissonance, where I knew, on a cellular level, that Leo was a toxic manipulator. But the love I had for Chloe forced me to pretend he wasn't. We met in college, before Leo had turned the family name into a brand. She was brilliant and funny and saw me in a way no one else had, but she was inextricably tied to him. He was the sun she orbited, and by marrying her, I had willingly stepped into his gravitational pull. The first time he asked for money, it was $5,000. A cash flow issue with one of his early ventures. "I'll have it back to you by Friday," he'd said with a breezy wave of his hand. Chloe was the one who convinced me. "It's what family does, Ethan," she'd said, her voice laced with that familiar gentle pressure. "Ciao, we help each other. Don't make it weird." So I didn't. He paid me back 2 weeks late, with a joke about how artists don't understand interest rates. It was the beginning of a pattern. He was testing my boundaries, and with Chloe's help, he found I didn't have any. I was living in a state of learned helplessness, conditioned to accept his behavior to keep the peace, to keep Chloe happy. The requests grew larger, the excuses more elaborate. He was no longer just borrowing. He was allowing me to participate in his success. It was gaslighting disguised as generosity. He would make me feel small for hesitating, for questioning the logic of lending tens of thousands of dollars with no paperwork. "Ethan, it's like you want to stay in the minor leagues," he'd say, a look of profound disappointment on his face. "I'm trying to bring you up to the majors, and you're fighting me." The breaking point, the moment my life pivoted from quiet resentment to a waking nightmare, came 6 months ago. I had just received a significant payout from a commercial project I'd designed. The nest egg Chloe and I were going to use for a down payment on a house, our escape from the rental market and from Leo's orbit. He found out, of course. He always did. He cornered me in his home gym, a gleaming cathedral of chrome and black rubber. He was buzzing with energy, practically vibrating with excitement. "Ethan, my man, your timing is supernatural," he said, clapping me on the shoulder hard enough to make me stumble. He told me about a biotech startup, a revolutionary gene-editing platform that was going to change the world. He said he needed one final major injection of capital to close the series of funding. A bridge loan. He needed $200,000. My exact nest egg. "It's a 3-week turnaround, Max," he promised, his eyes gleaming. And for helping me out, I'll cut you in for a 2% equity stake. Consider it a thank you. This is it, Ethan. This is the one that gets us on the cover of Forbes. Every alarm bell in my body was screaming. It was too much, too fast, too perfect. For the first time, I said no. I told him it was our house fund, that it was promised. I tried to stand my ground. That night, Chloe fell apart. I don't understand you, she wept, her face buried in her hands. We were in our small apartment, which suddenly felt claustrophobic, like a cage. And my brother is handing you the opportunity of a lifetime and you're spitting in his face. It's like you don't trust him. It's like you don't trust me. Chloe, this is our future, I pleaded. It's everything we've saved. No, it's just money, she shot back. And you care more about it than you care about my family. He's trying to help us. Why can't you see that? I looked at my wife, the woman I loved more than anything, and I saw that she was caught in a trap just as surely as I was. A trauma bond, forged over a lifetime of her brother's manipulations, had convinced her that his needs superseded our own. Her reality was whatever he told her it was. To disagree with him was to betray her. I was exhausted. I was worn down from years of fighting this losing battle. And so, in a moment of profound weakness, I gave in. I wrote the check. I handed over our future. The 3 weeks came and went. Then a month. Then 2. My calls to Leo went from friendly check-ins to nervous inquiries. His tone shifted. The breezy confidence was replaced by annoyed condescension. Ethan, you need to calm down. The market is volatile. These aren't real estate deals. You don't just close in 30 days. Let the big boys handle it. And he made me feel like an idiot, a clueless child bothering the adults. He made me question my own right to ask for my own money back. The shame was suffocating. I had let him do this. I had let him take everything, and the worst part was, I had done it with my eyes open. One rainy Tuesday, I called his office and his assistant informed me, in a chilly voice, that Mr. Vance was in Monaco for the foreseeable future and was not to be disturbed. He wasn't just avoiding me, he was gone, and so was our money. Chloe was withdrawn, wrapped in a blanket of denial, refusing to believe her brother would ever intentionally harm us. I was utterly and completely alone. The first stage of grief, they say, is denial. For me, it was a cold, methodical fury. The architect in me, the part of my brain that sees the world as a series of structures and systems, took over. If my life was a building, Leo had just dynamited the foundation. It was my job to sift through the rubble. I wasn't just going to find out what happened. I was going to understand the blueprint of my own destruction. This was no longer about getting my money back. This was a financial crime investigation, and I was the sole detective. I started with the biotech company, Omnigen. Its website was slick, full of stock photos of smiling scientists and incomprehensible jargon about CRISPR technology. But it was all a facade. The address listed was a P.O. box in Delaware. The names on the board of directors were phantoms, untraceable. I spent my nights digging, teaching myself the basics of forensic accounting, falling down rabbit holes of corporate registration and domain hosting. It was a shell company, a well-designed empty box. The real breakthrough came from a moment of weakness, a memory of a time I'd been a good brother-in-law. Years ago, I had set up Leo's home office network. He was paranoid about security but lazy about passwords. I had created a password for his primary cloud storage account, one he'd likely never bothered to change. It was Clois Queen 77, the number of his childhood home. He was a narcissist, but his sister was his most valuable possession. I typed it in. Access granted. It was all there. A digital monument to his own sociopathy. Leo wasn't just running one scam, he was running a full-blown Ponzi scheme. Omnigen was just the latest lure. He had dozens of shell corporations, each with its own convincing narrative, preying on everyone from sophisticated investors to old family friends. He was using money from new victims to pay dividends to older ones, creating the illusion of success while he siphoned millions to offshore accounts and funded his decadent lifestyle. He was a vampire, and his entire social circle was his feeding ground. The file that made my blood run cold was labeled family and legacy. He had systematically drained his own parents' retirement fund. But then I found the folder that would become my ultimate weapon. It was labeled the ledger. It wasn't a financial ledger. It was a series of audio files. An extramarital affairs podcast of his own making. It was a secret audio diary. For years, Leo had been recording himself after his trysts, after his fraudulent deals. He would narrate his wins, his voice a sickening mix of self-congratulation and contempt for his victims. He mocked his investors' intelligence, laughed about his conquests, naming the wives and daughters of his friends and business partners. He saw it all as a game, a grand performance where he was the only real player. It was the most purely evil thing I had ever encountered. The final piece of my revenge clicked into place. I had to create an inescapable trap. I had to force Chloe to see her brother for what he was. I couldn't just show her spreadsheets. I had to show her his soul. I edited a short audio clip. It was 2 minutes long. The first minute was Leo, laughing as he described how he was going to fleece his own parents. The second minute was him describing, in graphic detail, a recent affair with the wife of his supposed best friend, a man who was like a second father to Chloe. I played it for her in our silent, tense apartment. She listened, her face going from confusion to disbelief, to a pale, horrified mask. The cognitive dissonance was a violent, shattering force. The image of her heroic, protective brother was being immolated before her very eyes. When it was over, she was silent for a long time. Then she looked at me, and for the first time in years I could see she was truly seeing me. "What are you going to do?" she whispered, her voice trembling. I corrected her gently, are going to set a boundary. Leo's annual Visionary Gala was the crown jewel of the Boston charity scene. It was a monument to his ego, a night where he paraded his success to attract new marks. This year I knew, he was planning to announce his biggest venture yet. Another phantom company designed to lure in the city's wealthiest citizens. It was the perfect stage. Chloe and I arrived late, moving through the crowd like ghosts. Leo was on stage, bathed in a spotlight, talking about building a better future through trust and integrity. The hypocrisy was so profound it was almost poetic. During the applause, I slipped away to the AV booth. I'd already done my research. A little social engineering with the event staff earlier in the week had given me everything I needed. As Leo began his keynote speech, I made my move. And as we looked to the next fiscal year, he began, his arms spread wide. Our greatest asset will always be our character. At that moment, his voice was cut off. A new sound filled the grand ballroom. It was Leo's voice, but it wasn't the voice of the philanthropist on stage. It was the sneering secret voice from his audio diary. I played the clip. The part where he laughed about his own parents being too stupid to see he was robbing them blind. Then the part where he mocked his best friend, who was sitting in the front row, and described his affair with the man's wife, who was sitting right next to him. A wave of confusion rippled through the hall, followed by a tidal wave of shock and outrage. People turned to stare at the man in the front row, at his ashen-faced wife. The entire room, a collection of the most powerful people in Boston, was frozen in a state of collective horror. Leo stood on the stage, his face a mask of disbelief, as his own secret voice, his own true self, echoed through the speakers, stripping him bare in front of the entire world. I didn't stick around to watch the fallout. Chloe and I walked out hand in hand into the cool night air. The next day the dam broke. The public humiliation was the catalyst. Investors started pulling out, demanding answers. The SEC, armed with a very detailed anonymous tip from a concerned party, launched a full-scale investigation. Faced with public disgrace and imminent financial collapse, Leo's Ponzi scheme imploded. He lost everything: the mansion, the cars, the reputation. Last I heard, he was facing a battery of federal charges that would likely put him away for decades. Chloe and we started over. We took the money that was eventually recovered, and we bought a small plot of land far away from Boston. I'm designing our house myself. It won't be a mansion, but it will be honest, and it will be ours. He thought the most horrifying thing he could do was take my money. He didn't realize that I was willing to do something much worse. I was willing to tell the truth.